There you go. I didn't want that to go over you.
All right, thank you. All right, so I really only have just some kind of bullet points, and the idea is that I would try and take notes so that we can at least have this down and maybe use this as a springboard for future meetings, possibly exchange an ad hoc committee, something to that effect with the AGP. To be able to kind of find out ways that we can work together, things of that nature. So that's kind of where my mind is and why I wanted to set up this roundtable discussion. I know there are lots of issues that that overlap between the surveying industry and GIS professionals. So I'm gonna briefly turn it over to Roy and John. Also, I'll mention, you know, being the rep from the surveying group into the AGP, you know, if you have a couple thoughts, obviously, to intro this roundtable discussion, being part of the last discussion that we had, that would be fantastic as well. So I'll be quiet now and turn it over to you guys. And we'll go from there. Hopefully.
Okay. Does that mean that's is that my cue?
Well, John didn't jump up yet, so it sounds like
but you go right ahead, Roy.
Okay. Sorry, I don't know if you guys can see me or not here, but
Kevin, could you stop sharing your screen?
Yes, let me do that.
Oh, that's outside. Okay. So, all right. Sorry, I'm kind of in the middle of about 6 different things today, and decided to come down here to the gun shop and do some things, and everyone thought I was open for the day. So I partially opened for the day, and then now I got the meeting here of now my wife is hollering at me saying they're at the front door. So so let me while get this figured out here. So I missed a little bit this morning, or I missed everything that you were mentioning there, Kevin, a little bit at the beginning about some legislature stuff and things. But I think hopefully yesterday, I let my family in here real quick before it starts raining. No, it's okay. So from the meeting that I ended up having, I hope that went pretty well, and I hope it was good for everybody to hear and understand. My main thing with the 4 years now that I've been as a county surveyor, trying to promote the profession, because many of you may know, I'm not going to go into the history like I did, you know, too much of the last one, but many of you may know a few years back, there was a push to have the county surveyor removed as an elected office, because a lot of people just all of a sudden, you know, I don't know why it was pushed, honestly, but everyone was like, well, they don't have any duties, then why is it even an office? And there was a big push. Luckily, it got tabled, and there hasn't been too much of a push. You know, for years, the county surveyor has been trying to do stuff and to get some legislative things written into the code where we would have some actual duties, because there is a need for the county to have a county surveyor and a paid county surveyor. And like I mentioned before, we're the only elected official in a county that cannot be paid by the commission, because they cannot, they can't pay us. So it's kind of thrown the county surveyor position into a, like, well, some county surveyors will help out on their own time, and some just are like, well, why do it if we can't get paid? So when I started this initiative to try to get and promote the position of county surveyor, I was informed, I think actually John, before I really even knew John, he had, John Green had sent me an email that said, you need to garner support.
from your commissioners, from your assessors, from, people to show that you're just not coming and saying, hey, I need a job. And which, as a surveyor, I shouldn't really have to come out. I think everyone knows what surveyors bring to the table. But in that instance, yes, trying to get out and promote the county surveyor position and garner support for people to see that. So when we do take it to the state level, that we have people showing, yes, we support the fact that the county surveyor should, play a vital role in not only, tax map verification, the line work, GIS, the list goes on and on of what we could provide the public. When you look at the courthouse, when somebody in the public wants to know where their property is taxed, they go to the assessor. The assessor provides that to them. Whenever they want to know where their deed's recorded, they go to the county clerk. There's a place for all of that there, and the public should have that ability to go, I have questions about my deed. Maybe not necessarily, we can't survey all the property, in a county. I mean, that to be the part of the public to do for themselves. But to have somebody there that could answer simple questions, especially, when they get these deeds and, some of them, just because they think it says 2020 on the top of the deed, they think that description, which is written in polls and a nearest degree, they think that's a current survey. They have no idea that traces back probably 150 years. And so they realize really quick that the acreage that they just bought for, $1,500 an acre, they don't have it. And then that causes a great confusion, well, it says I have it, and it just, the list goes on and on of things. So, my main thing, I guess, was whenever, at our convention, Kevin was there, and it just seemed like a good mesh for me to jump in and talk with Kevin about, the role that the county surveyor could help the counties. And, I'm not in onto everything the GIS, is involved with your organization, with the counties and how they put their tax maps and stuff together. But, it never hurts to look for help and support. And really, I don't really know how much more you want me to go into certain details, but I mean, that's pretty much me as the county surveyor. I'd like to see that, and I'd love to be able to take and go to a place and being put in front of somebody to pitch all of these, these ideas and things that we need. Outside of that, I'm still a surveyor and I provide my services as a surveyor, but that's sort of, I guess, where I think I need to kind of voice here in this forum. Kevin, advise me if you think there's anything else I would need, to address.
Yeah, no, Roy, I think that's a great intro, and I appreciate that. So, and I agree. I think there's a lot of details that we could get lost in, but I guess I want to keep this in the framework of how can the GIS community either support what your initiative is, or at least talk about it. Again, I'm supportive of that initiative because I see the need, and also I think I could make a case as well. And I mentioned this during the conference, which is I could see the language of roles and responsibilities of the county surveyor to be either and or both, in terms of the county surveyor having a licensed survey certification and GIS responsibilities or GISP responsibilities, specifically meaning that all of these counties that are starting to acquire their aerial photography or work with vendors to remap parcels or things like that, it would be great for someone to be reliable for them to be able to help write and read and parse some of that language, that contract language. And in terms of contracting GIS services out, I see, it would be great to have some of the expertise available. And yeah, I'm trying to shy away from all of the details in terms of, well, would it be a full-time position and what the salary would be and all of that stuff. But I see enough areas of opportunity that I felt it was worth a further discussion. So I think that's a great intro. I'm going to pause my side of things, and then I know we have a couple of other surveyors. Yeah, go ahead, John.
I got a question, a couple questions. I understand exactly what you're saying there, Kevin, and obviously I agree with Roy, but I would have a question just to illustrate things. Is Roy, do you currently use GIS software and provide GIS services in your business?
No, not in my personal, nor do I do anything for the county.
But the county, your county probably does in their tax department and in probably some other areas where you would see a county surveyor's role in providing support with that, correct?
Yeah, and to speak on that part for just a second, my county just hired a company. I won't say what company. I don't know what parameters I can, but they hired a company to remap the entire county, and I just seen that as something that the county surveyor easily could have been the person to provide that. But yeah, I mean, and I talked with them about it. And again, it fell into the whole thing. Well, we can't pay you as the county surveyor to do that. We'd have to hire you in as the mapper. And that's where a lot of county surveyors who have active roles, they're not doing it under the county surveyor name. They get hired as a mapper, which doesn't do anything for, the profession or, for the office. So,
but I think I agree with what you're saying. And I agree with Kevin that, consulting in areas like that would be an excellent place for the county surveyor to be involved. By the same token, most of the county surveyors, or most surveyors I know today, professional licensed surveyors, are not very fluent in GIS. There's some that are, and some that use it frequently, but I'm experienced enough with it just to know that it's a totally different language and it's a totally different science and technology and area. It's definitely overlapped with surveying, but I see one of the big obstacles and maybe one of the big opportunities, really for us to develop this relationship is in training, in both realms, and exposing each other's practitioners to some of the technical aspects, details, and expertise and things that are needed to kind of bridge that gap. And I think it would benefit both the county surveyor in supporting the tax assessor and the other county agencies and whoever else in doing the business they have to do, and in that role as a consultant or actually practicing to some degree, whatever that may be, and then vice versa. I think it would help the GIS users, even the county, both in say in some type of asset management role, maybe in contract development or in workflow procedures or things like that for data collection or what have you, or for the tax mappers and people in that realm in interpreting maps and deeds and surveys and so forth. So I see one of the first big parts of your bullet points there, Kevin, of collaboration, I think is probably training is the one that sticks out at me right off the bat as a place where we could go.
And the thing to remember, the assessor isn't the one that does all the assessments. You know, that he has an office of staff members. So some of the county surveyors may go, well, I don't have the time to do it. Well, there's also, it's called the office of the county surveyor. It's not just the county surveyor. So that's one of the things too, I think people maybe limit a little bit. You know, the county clerk doesn't do, you know, all the stuff, you know, the clerk is responsible for. They have staff members. So it still could easily fall within the realms of the office of the county surveyor having staff members to be trained as well. And also the county surveyor needs it. Somebody had just commented there too that, you know, that it would be great, I believe they're in Greenbrier, that they have a county surveyor. I mean, the position is needed. It's going to take an act of Congress to get it done. And if they just tried to, you know, if we come pushing this and they're like, well, didn't we just try to take this job, you know, and get rid of it a few years back, and now they're coming in saying it's important. That's the biggest hurdle. And you know, I believe right at the moment is getting the recognition that we need to show that it is necessary to have that oversight individual within the county when dealing with, you know, mapping and things like that.
Kevin, are you guys still planning to have GIS Day at the Capitol next year in 2022?
Yes, sir.
It'd be good to County Surveyors Association to be present at that too, if possible, Roy.
Yep, that I would agree. I would imagine.
Make sure you're in contact with our board. Again, I'm stepping back a little bit. I'll be around, but I know that they're talking about it. So I'm sure it wouldn't take much to get you a table and you know, to make sure that your presence is known there. So, you know, John, I think that's a great point. And in terms of the cross training, which we've definitely talked about, I know we've had surveyors come through some of the GIS Foundations classes that we've offered. You know, I think it would be great. I don't know what type of training your organization is able to offer non-surveyors. I don't know if like intro to surveying or at least surveying basics, things like that, or things that you guys would even offer. But, you know, I don't see a problem in if you do, to try and reach out to our membership about those. I think there are members of the AGP that would be interested in that.
I believe Glenville, I know it wasn't a prerequisite when I went there, but intro to GIS was offered as a class you could take. I think I heard that they may have made that a prerequisite now. I'm not 100% sure, but I know Glenville's degree had it available, which that was, 20 years ago now. time flies, but so
yeah, there's, for that end, I know WVU offers surveying classes as well. I guess what I'm wondering is there professional course, like development courses that people would be able to do without, a semester long commitment. And the idea, I think the idea is cross training. I don't think it's trying to build GIS people up into surveyors.
Right.
I think there's
I think we have, like you said, Kevin, we have talked about this before, and I think this topic right here, I think is kind of starting to get down into the details of that. And I think there were several things that kind of presented themselves as obstacles in kind of working through when we've talked about that before, such as the differences between our two organizations and how we function and how we're kind of set up financially and that sort of thing. But also we never really got to one of the things that I think you're kind of getting to, and that is we should probably have some discussions with some of your people, education or training people or technical people or whatever, and kind of get your take on what you think would be what an entry level or introduction to surveying type course might entail, and same thing with for surveyors with GIS, because I don't know that something out there, I've never seen anything anyway that's really completely adequate. So we probably, we could develop stuff, we've developed seminars and presentations before to find the right people and put those together. And so I think it might be something that we really need to develop between ourselves, to something that fits our membership and helps their needs.
Yeah, I was just looking to see if Marvin is in the attendee list. I don't think he is, but he's going to head up the training committee, and I'm going to co-chair that with him as well. But yeah, absolutely, I think that, and I guess that's why I was asking if you had a resource for what classes are available from your organization, or how you guys would see it. I'm looking back through some of the comments. Brandy had mentioned that. GIS applications is a prereq to the natural resource degree. And I don't know if, if it was a prereq for the surveying degree.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
But when we do ours, we have a committee that deals with planning the seminars. And then we have an education committee as well that helps put things together. So, when we have to develop something, we work through it. We, volunteers and that sort of thing.
Yeah, Mac, I think that's a great point. Let's bring that up here in a minute. I think the training is definitely an area where we can be a little bit more proactive on each side in terms of trying to come up with some common courses, or at least some cross training that would benefit both of our memberships. So I think that's definitely one of the bullet points I have down, and I see a couple of the comments are boundary control. I think Andrew made the same comment, which is, some very basics in terms of, maybe plat interpretation or deed interpretation, things like that. I had a GIS class for cadastral management, and part of there was a module in there for, building a polygon from a deed description, and that's something that we could definitely try and build out as well.
Kevin, I think I may have an in for Roy here, an idea for him at least. The weakness here is that within the county clerk's office, basically anything can be recorded. Let's face facts here. I've been at this for almost 20 years. And I think, like Ohio, we should probably have a stamp from the county surveyor stating that this description on this deed is an accurate description.
Yep, I totally agree with you. That I think it's an
idea to get in on the legislature here. Is how many deeds are out there that are so old, so descriptions are so old that they just have to be completely redone.
They should not be. Yeah, they should not be recorded, just like Ohio will red stamp. From what I've understood, they red stamp it, and then from that point, it could be recorded at that point. But after that point, it has to be resurveyed to meet minimum standards. I think that right there would solve a lot, but it also would create a lot of backlog because there's not a whole lot of surveyors to resurvey every piece of ground in West Virginia, because that's pretty much what you would be doing for the most part.
Not in particularly. What you're looking at is to look at that description and see if it fits. If it's still a good description, even though it's 80 years old and still works, you can stamp it. We can do it a little differently than Ohio.
I mean, in that regards, I have two thoughts on that. First of all, I thought that they, like Mon County, for example, I correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone knows better, but I thought there is something in the maybe the county code or the state code that if it's over a certain number of acres, it has to be surveyed, or if it is being split up into X number of parcels or over, it has to be surveyed. If it's under that, then it doesn't have to be surveyed. So that's kind of part A. So I'm wondering if that isn't something that would be beneficial legislatively going forward, because again, we're really talking about, new splits, right? Is kind of one of the things, but then also understanding the deed of existing parcels. That's something that we would be able to generate in terms of, doing just a simple analysis of deeded acreage versus calculated acreage and percent difference, and finding out, because in theory, if your deed should be recorded acreage wise with whatever description it was at the time, that should give you a good indication of what the polygon should be on the other side, right? I mean, so we could be able to find, for instance, like, the top 50 bad parcels per county, and this is your working order to go through those, to fix in priority, from year to year to year, as a way to kind of tackle the worst of the worst. I think that might be, something like that could be a practical approach.
Kevin, I've ran into descriptions where it's the distance it takes a horse to trot for 30 seconds.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. But the deed essentially will still have an acreage. And Dave, you're right. And I've seen them, we deal with parcels and mineral parcels, and those are even more fun because they're underground and you can't see anything. So, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is if there's a technical approach to frame the legislation to allow us to start tackling some of these issues. I mean, I know counties are feeling the heat. We have the parcel data online. People see it lined up with their imagery, and whether or not that polygon, lines up with their house or their garden or, their fence line, people see that now in the imagery and they take that for,
Yep.
for granted. And boy, if it doesn't line up, there's hell to pay. And
yeah. I mean, that right there, even in the sense, I know that, like I said before, the big disclaimer that they put, it's just going to take one person to go, hey, wait a second, you're showing lines on here. Those lines represent boundary lines, because that's where you're getting the polylines from, is from the deeds. And you're showing a representation of those boundary lines, even though you're saying they're tax parcel lines, they're still coming from the deeds. Somebody could easily try to say, you're misrepresenting what it is, not because it's you, but I get so many phone calls every single day. And I mean, it is World War III, because all the county has your house on my property. You owe me money right now. And it is causing headaches for a lot of people, because it's not bad in every situation, but there is quite a few that, it's an issue.
yeah, for sure. So, I think one thing, and boy, I'm ready to throw all the bombs today. So, I'm one of the things that I think I brought up during your conference was, it would seem like there are a couple legislative fixes that would be, in the grand scheme of things, relatively easy to do, which is requiring surveys to be done or submitted for parcels over X acreages, or that include X number of splits, lots, or sub parcels, however you want to work it. Right. So we're getting the bulk of new data coming in as quality data. So the parcel itself needs to be surveyed. And then that survey theoretically, hopefully, could be digital. I mean, is there, would there be a pushback from the surveying community against digital submission to the assessor's offices?
It would be up to the client to, because it is a client confidentiality between me and my client to what he does with his plat. So that would be the problem. So
well, the plat is a public record. Once
No,
it's submitted to the
plat, when a surveyor does a plat, Kevin, a plat is the product of that survey, and it belongs to the client. And if he wants to record it and make it a public document, that's his discretion. That's what Roy is saying. And there's actually laws, rules, whatever you would call them, that the surveyors have to go by that actually prohibit us from publishing anything without that client's permission. So, there's a lot of, when you start talking about this legislative area and the legislation, and like you were saying.
Sorry, guys, I got to jump off. Bye.
Okay, there probably some things that ought to be pretty easy to get done and pretty straightforward. And that may be somewhat true, but when you get to legislation, there's a lot of stuff going on in there, and there's a lot of details, and there's a lot of stuff you just don't think about, until you really get into it. So you really have to, investigate this stuff and study it pretty heavily in order to draft the proper legislation to do that. And that's why it's not.
So I'll jump in as a licensed surveyor and say this whole client confidentiality on your survey product, it is complete and utter. We got to do away with that. These plats have to be recorded. All that does is create issues down the line when somebody has a survey that has been done. And I'm even going to throw out even more. 99% of all of our commercial properties inside the state of West Virginia have had a ALTA standard survey completed on them, and not one of them, and I guarantee you probably less than 0.5% of any of them are recorded in a courthouse. And there has been pins set. There has been everything done by a licensed land surveyor, but none of that is publicly available to another surveyor. So I really think as surveyors, we have to look hard at that law, because I think we're doing an injustice to the society when we don't.
Yeah, John, and just to back up, my comment was solely in the context of a survey done for boundary purposes, either resale or adjudication, with the intent it is going to the assessor's office. And again, that's kind of my context. Yeah. I'm trying to keep the framework in terms of where the GIS community kind of falls in. So that's kind of where I'm saying that, like, I'm trying to look for ways that, I think the GIS community as a whole really wants to be able to use the best available data, and as well as the assessor's offices. And sometimes that means that survey is not available, which is why I was asking or suggesting if that was something that the surveyors would be behind legislation that would say, hey, if you're, subdividing this 100 acres into 200, lots, and you have the intent of reselling them, then that's something that needs to be surveyed and submitted back to the county assessor's office as for instance, a digital file that they can then integrate into their data.
Well, to speak to that just a minute, Kevin, yes, in a word, yes. But the thing is that right now, that is the authority or the jurisdiction of the counties to do that. And most of them, a lot of them, I think most of them do require that. They have planning commissions that require, they have subdivision regulations. Some cities do. but certainly counties do. Some of them don't, but most of them do. And they require that plat when you're subdividing to be, stamped, sealed, submitted, and all of that. And that's fine. And yes, the surveyors in the Surveying Society, we do support that. But like I said before, there's other details in other areas where it won't apply, and it's difficult without some type of state legislation like Matt was alluding to. And right now, even some surveys I do, I'll send them to John Barth down at the assessor's office, and I know other surveyors that do the same thing. But that's where we have the privilege and permission to do that.
And Mac, point taken with the Assessors Association should be pushing that. I guess the part of it I was wondering is if the surveying community would be behind that legislation, because if they're not going to be supportive of that agenda, then I don't think the assessors are going to get too far.
Yeah, I mean, there is rules currently now that state there is supposed to be a plat recorded when a parcel is subdivided into lots, but I don't know that it is always, governed correctly, when it comes in. But no, when we start getting in the saying, well, let's hold off on the legislative because we just don't know what to do. I mean, Ohio's done it. Other states have done it. There is a way to do it. And it just, it's going to have to take people to support each other and see the need of it being done. Ohio did great by what they've done. It forces the public's hand to cause them to bring in stuff that then updates the county records with the recorder's office, which would be our county clerks, forces that record update. It forces the mapping corrections and the assessor's level. When you require a survey and the plat is recorded and everything is done, which then the county surveyor could look at that plat and make sure it adheres to minimum standards and have it recorded, that fixes a lot of this problem. But again, that's, and that could easily be done. I think there is support with that. Who do I need to get in front of to find support that?
I think it could be done, but I don't think it would be easy. And that's not supposed to be. And you're right, Roy, we do need to work together on it. And the devil's in the details, in the details of how to get it done. There is a way. Absolutely. But again, I think we still start to step outside of the framework that Kevin set up between the.
From a surveyor standpoint, I personally would much rather see us go into a legislative season with an offensive strategy versus a defensive, and with the support of other groups, because it, lack of a better term, it's going to take, the 250 licensed surveyors in the state of West Virginia can make calls all they want. But, if we start getting, some assessors and some other people to really jump in, your community as well, pushes some of this legislation, I think we can really see some change made. Whenever it's more than just 2 or 3 people calling into their state senator or state delegate,
Yeah, I think everything we've talked about is fitting what it seems like Kevin has wished for here, because we need that support. No, 250 surveyors coming to the state and going, you need to require all surveys, does not look at the greatest on the face value. But if everyone in the community who's involved with mapping, GIS, and all this stuff come together and go, hey, we agree with them, this needs to be changed, and that and then I hope that the county surveyor can be a part of that oversight written into these rules as well. But on taking it out of the county surveyor's
thing that I was bringing in, all of us surveyors, this helps, this will help it will help everything, not just the county surveyor, but when it comes to all this. So I
That's
think it's
one
good.
reason I think that collaboration at GIS Day at the Capitol is a very good resource, because we could make a showing there, more than just one or two people at the table, alongside the GIS community. That would go a long way in making the type of an example that you're talking about, Roy.
So I agree, and I think these are hitting some of the nails that we discussed and brought up. I'm trying to take some notes, and then also one thing that came to mind as well, aside from the cadastral, which I think is probably the prominent crossover area in our state, at least for now, between a lot of surveying and GIS. But another one that comes to mind is is boundary adjudication, and specifically municipal and county boundary adjudication, which is, we have a lot of a lot of municipalities and cities and counties, less so, but that are trying to delineate boundaries, or we're using boundaries drawn from census, which are drawn from USGS 24,000 scale topo maps and have been altered 15 times since they were drawn. And we literally have, speaking as an example that, we got this past year, we literally have calls from municipalities that say, we see the boundary that you have from, census, and it's not right. And I said, okay, well, can you provide us with the correct boundary? And their answer is no. I mean, what do you do? So, I think that would be right in line with an official county surveying position. But I think that is a active issue that a lot of municipalities are facing in the state, in terms of trying to decipher, their original charter boundary. And, it's starting to come into play in terms of your wards and voting districts, and, zoning for the few areas that are trying to initiate zoning. That gets into the legal weeds quick if you don't and cannot defend your boundary. So that was another thought that came to mind.
Yeah, that and about 100 years of various annexations and.
No, exactly. And right, exactly. And that's why I was saying, they a lot of what the census has been drawn from, the original USGS topo maps, which are, at best 25 years old. So yeah, I think there's some areas there. I don't know, Roy, if you've started to get a list together or a template position of responsibilities, but that seems like it would be pretty high on the list in terms of official responsibilities, is establishing and maintaining the official boundary.
Well, sorry, I keep turning my video off because I haven't ate lunch yet. It's 3 o'clock, so I'm scarfing down food at the same exact time when I'm cutting in between. The amazing thing is now that I've been president of the County Surveyors Association, each so many years, I have been sent paperwork from past presidents with the same drive and initiative as what I have. And they've always hit a roadblock, it seems. And I was just looking through when I was getting ready for this, my speech yesterday with you all. I come through an email that someone sent me from, I believe, Leon Spencer, and he lays all of that out from 2000. I mean, what you're saying, the districts, the county lines. I mean, it was pretty much what we need to do. And that's what 21 years ago. They
21 years. Yeah, right. We're still talking.
we're still talking about the same exact things. And I mean, he even mentions in there about mosaics and different things. So yeah, this need has always been thought about. It just, I don't know. I mean, it's just something has hit a roadblock, and maybe it'll happen with me too. I don't know. I mean, but it seems like I think we're getting some support here with people who, feel the need as well. I can email that to you, Kevin, just, not as a
Sure.
formal from the county survey, but just email that to you to see what has been talked about for the last 21 plus years. So.
Yeah. So I guess then, to put a point on it, maybe from today's roundtable specifically, or maybe we need to come up with some very specific bulleting license, bullet action items that we can constructively, work on. Training, I think, is a tangible and worthwhile effort that we can probably make progress on in terms of getting some of our members cross-trained. I think outreach is a tangible goal. I know it seems like that would be just talking about it, but say start planting the seed now of the legislature of things that need to change, talking with the County Assessors Association. I think that is an excellent idea. We as a AGP, as an organization, we need to do better about getting in front of their group as well as the League of Government County, the League of Municipalities, or I can't remember the name of it, but there's the court.
The West Virginia Municipal League.
Yes, thank you. I couldn't think of the name.
And
But
probably one thing nobody's mentioned too is the county clerks have an association as well in regards to everything we've talked about. And since they're the ones that maintain the quality control on what is being recorded, when you're talking about mandatory recordation of surveys, I think they'd have to be on board too.
That's a very good point, Tyler.
I think one thing I wanted to mention there just a few minutes ago, I know that you guys, John, I know I've talked to you, I've talked to Jack Buddha and several other surveyors about mandatory recordation over the years. And I know, oh, hey, Jack, I see you there. I didn't know you were here. But I know one problem that comes up when you're talking about mandatory recordation is cost that you're gonna be passing over to the owner of the property. So right now you can take your deed that your grandfather passed down to your dad, who then passed it on to you, and you can take that and go pass it on to your son with the same description. And it is a problem because it's a bad description in a lot of cases. I realize that. I did tax mapping for 9 years in Fayette County prior to my current job. So I've seen a lot of those situations, and I agree 100%. There's some bad descriptions and some stuff that should not be recorded. I mean, I dealt with some handwritten deeds, like newly made handwritten deeds. You see them all. But the problem is, if you're going to tell that person, okay, your 100 acres has been passed down from your grandfather, this is a bad description. Now you got to get it surveyed before we're going to let you transfer this to your son. The problem is that you're looking at upwards of $15,000 survey for that person to get it done. That's where I think a lot of the crux is going to come in, is that cost. So, I mean, how are we going to handle that? I mean, I'm all about, if you have a survey and it's done and you've had a survey done on your property, at the time that you record that deed, if there is a survey that you've had done, it needs to be recorded with that, especially if your description's based on that too. I'm a little reluctant about saying, oh, you've got this description, you've never had a survey, now you need to have this done before you can transfer this property, just simply from the cost perspective. That person may not be able to afford to do that. That would be my concern with it.
Yeah, and I've tried to mention that too before. I mean, it could be an issue, but also the fact that just the other day I had a woman call and she goes, I've got 100 acres and I don't know where it is. The attorney tells me I don't need a survey, which I need to call that attorney. No, I'm just kidding. I don't need a survey. And she's like, I don't know where anything is. I need a survey and I don't care what the cost is. So people are starting to realize that there is a need now to go ahead and fork out that, $10,000-15,000, because people can go and get a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 car as well. But the most valuable piece of property they own or they'll ever have is the ground in which they have their home and everything. And I think people are starting to see that a little bit more.
Yeah, I always encourage people. I mean, I didn't hesitate at all. So listen, go get your property surveyed. You're coming to me in the assessor's office with a question about your property, and you got a problem with your neighbor, and you're arguing, and you don't know where your line is exactly. I said, listen, best thing you can do is go get it surveyed. Yeah, it costs some money, but it's going to be one of the best investments that you're going to make. You know, you live on the property, you're going to pass it down to your children or whatever you're going to do with it, and you don't know where your corner is, and you're arguing with your neighbor who, by the way, also doesn't know where their corner is, and you're squabbling about things that neither of you really know about, for sure.
Well, like you said right there, the icing on that is I mentioned that yesterday. I don't know if you were in that one. Was that 9 times out of the 10 when somebody calls the assessor's office, the first thing the assessor's office says to them is, you need to go get a survey. So we're already telling people from the assessor standpoint, go get a survey. And so a law that says you need to go get a survey, I don't think it would get as much pushback. I mean, as long as you don't require it on the very first sale, you would have to allow it to pass one transaction, and then somebody could have it for 20 years and then realize, okay, when I sell this off, but I don't want to get too
and Tyler, your point is taken, and I agree that it definitely gets a little scary when you are starting to require money from citizens as out of pocket. I 100% agree. I don't know if that outweighs the cost of perpetuating the problem into the future with no end in sight. And I think that's what we're trying to establish, which is, how do we reconcile the problems that we face now through a process that we, with today's technology, can agree upon? And part of that means reconciling, and that's why I suggested maybe we start with the worst of the worst. And the assessors, if I'm not mistaken, the assessors have to be within a certain percent. Tyler, you should know this better than me. Their parcels, their deeded acreage and their polygons need to be within a certain percent before they're claimed not to be correct. Is that not true?
Not that I'm aware of. I've never been made aware of that. I mean, naturally we strive, or most of us that did that to get it as close as possible. But that's the thing. And Roy mentioned that earlier about somebody bringing up the point that, hey, your parcels aren't correct, you're misrepresenting. Well, that I'm going to go back to the standard tax map or disclaimer and hide behind it and say, listen, this is the best possible. I mean, tax maps were only originally ever meant to be a general representation, not really even used for the public, although they're public record. I mean, the original intent was so that the assessor could locate the property to find the taxable area that he needed to assess.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not aware of any that is sort of a problem. I think there probably should be some quality standards on the tax maps, but the problem is you can't incorporate quality standards because a lot of the properties, there's no possible way to attain those standards because of the documentation. So we're circling back here. Because the documentation that's recorded doesn't allow for that standard to be met.
Because it's perpetuated. Again, we're trying to break that cycle. And one way of breaking that cycle is property that's passed down, or property that's broken into splits, or property that's sold off. And I think those are the natural breakpoints, if you will, to interrupt that cycle of perpetuating a bad deed or bad geometry.
Well, I'd
like to make a comment. I think I understand what you're saying, Kevin, but what I'd like to say is that I think both Roy and Tyler's comments both are well taken. One indicates the need and a possible fix for it, but Tyler is speaking exactly to what I was talking about earlier about the devil being in the details, and that it's not going to be easy because there's a lot of issues like that will be brought up, and we will have to find some way to answer those or offset those or whatever. That's just part of the work you have to do to get this done. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm just saying everybody should be prepared, because It's going to take a lot of work to do that. I mean, there's a reason, Roy said it earlier, that stuff was given to him 20 years ago, and here we are still talking about it. It's not because those guys before him didn't try. And like he said, they hit some type of a roadblock, some obstacle they could not get over. But it is encouraging also, like Roy said, that we have others now that are coming forward, like the AGP, that are seeing the same need and willing to kind of get behind that. So it's encouraging, but it ain't going to be easy.
And I would add just one quick, which is the fact that I mentioned again, that this data now, which used to live in map books on a shelf in a courthouse, are now at people's fingertips. And that could be the difference between 20 years ago and today. People see how bad the data is, and that is not something they've been exposed
to. And we owe that, and I can tell you this is from my perspective anyway, my opinion, we owe that to GIS technology.
Well, thanks.
In a word, to GIS technology. That's what made that happen. I think the average age of surveyors is probably somewhere in the mid 60s. I think I consider myself an average surveyor. Okay. I think Roy is younger. He's one of the younger guys coming in. So people like him are going to inherit this stuff. People like me, a lot of guys in my age group, it's tough for us to get into the GIS technology and the GIS software because we've had a lot of, it's the language is one of the big barriers, just the language itself. And then there's learning the new software, that type of thing. Surveyors, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks, I guess you could say, but it's not easy for us to do that. And surveyors have kind of been dragged kicking and screaming and reluctantly done that. But I think the legislation that we passed several years back, which started to make these parcel maps and all this stuff public and online and available, is one of the things that has helped greatly to expose surveyors to that. Because now they've got apps on their phones where they can get to that stuff, and a lot of them are using that. Other resources have become available online from various web services that are out there now that surveyors are using, and they're really starting to see the benefit and actually using that type of software. I think hopefully that'll be some kind of a catalyst that'll help bridge the gap, collaboration, that sort of thing, and bring surveying and GIS together more. It has so far, I think, but I'd like to see it go farther.
So I think this is a good, John, and it's, you make a good point that Tori, I don't know if you saw the chat, but Tori and Mac were also having that side conversation about, are we going to have a lot of surveyors in the future? It seems like there's harder and harder to find. Roy, you even mentioned that, there's a lot of work, but maybe not enough professionals. So,
I was going to, you made a comment a minute ago, Kevin, not to interrupt you there, about, stopping this and not keeping it going into the future, cutting it off and fixing its stuff now. And when you start to do that, then you start opening up positions in the courthouse where there's now a county surveyor that involves this. Oh, well, somebody goes, well, what do I need to do to become a county surveyor? That sounds like a cool job. No one's going to be the county surveyor when they hear, no, you don't get paid, so there's also avenues of this that the promotion of the profession will be good and will get that call out by making these regulations. I mean, I think there's not a lot, but when people start hearing they can get paid to do something like this, I mean, that's, you might have some people doing it.
They should just call it the county surveyor internship.
Kevin, you look like you're trying to get in here. Come on in.
Kevin, I'd like to jump in here a second before we leave this topic. Jack Buda, I'm a county surveyor of Fayette County, and I'm on the legislative committee for the society as well. A couple things Tyler was bringing up there on cost. We have to look at this in two different ways. For years, I've been talking to surveyors about the mandatory recordation, and to record a plat is only $11 in Fayette County. I mean, it's not like it's a big deal. Now, a mandatory survey of the property is a different thing. If they have that on Ohio, that is very costly. So just to get mandatory recordation of a survey that has already been done, but is just being withheld because, well, I got mine surveyed, that neighbor can get his own surveyed, I'm not going to show him anything, that sort of thing. We can get over that hurdle by just adding something to the legislation. Okay, all surveys that have been done to where corners are established or reestablished need to be recorded. And then that takes the onus off of the surveyor. I just go to the landowner and say, hey, it's a state law. I have to record this. I'm sorry, we don't have any choice in this matter. You can't hide this survey in your top drawer. It has to be recorded because the law says so. And $11, that's all it adds to the cost. Now, another cost that has inhibited us for years and years and years is surveying is expensive. And when you go to the county commission and they want some precinct work done, or they want a county line set out, that is very expensive. Any dealings I've ever had with any county commissioners anywhere, they don't want us. They know it costs money. They know it's expensive. They know surveying is not cheap, and they're scrambling to meet budgets now as it is. They do not want to hear anything from surveyors. Now, if the GIS people, if the assessors, if the county clerks, if these other groups reinforce us, then yes, we can get some legislation acted upon. But right now they just say, oh, you guys are just trying to drum up business and we can't afford you anyway, so we don't want to hear it. You're excused. Bye. That's it. So it's going to take a group effort because surveying is expensive, and other people have to guarantee to the commissioners and to the legislators that we are valuable, our services are valuable. And that's what's been holding it up for years and years.
I'd be curious to know what the annual outlay of expenses for boundary adjudication in court has been in West Virginia, because it seems to me like if you always kind of talk about the return on investment, and to establish the proper boundaries, and Jack, I can't agree more. And I think I saw a presentation a decade and a half ago from Canada about the mandatory establishment of boundaries, where if you are a licensed surveyor, you have to submit the boundary. It goes into a national database, but then the surveyors themselves can access that national database back. So ultimately, the survey itself is costing less because there is more available information. They're not traipsing across 100 acres to get to the closest known point. They have it, usually within, however close. So, I don't know if the trade-off is, it certainly wouldn't be immediate, but I don't know if the trade-off between legal, I don't know, I don't know the right terminology, but boundary disputes between neighbors and having the surveys recorded. I don't know what that payoff would be, but it doesn't seem like it is an off balance equation. There is a return.
Because it doesn't, the county commissioners don't care about that.
Right.
What do they
But
care?
their constituents should.
They absolutely do. The few of them that are involved do, and a few more maybe, but that's a very small group when you're trying to get them to contact their legislator, their delegate, or their county commissioner. And those guys feel as though that they have enough on their plate and they don't want to spend any more money than they have to.
Sure.
Jack, you hit that. I was actually trying to get in there. I was going to mention what you said exactly, and I agree 100% in regards to, recording plats that have already been done or are being done, where the person has already determined that they can afford and will afford a survey. They've had the survey done, and then it just doesn't get recorded. I called you how many times have I called you? Can't count them. How many times I called you over the last 9 years? Hey, Jack, the attorney didn't file your survey map for this. Do you have it, or can I look at it? And but the problem is, even me looking at it and fixing the tax parcel, if it's not recorded, it's not helping anybody in the future. So I think that's a good middle ground personally, is to say, if there is a survey for the property that exists and it's not on file currently, it must be on file. That's for any past properties too. If you have a record of that, if I have a property that was surveyed in 1986 and I've got that plat recorded and sitting in my safe, and I've never filed that plat, but when I go to sell that or transfer it to my son or whatever, I think that should be recorded. That plat should be recorded because it's still valid if nothing's changed. In addition to, if I sell it to you and in the process you get a brand new survey done, again, there's your mandatory recordation. You're not costing anybody any extra money except for the $11, recordation fee. I don't know if that's a good temporary or first step solution. Then later down the road, you could start requiring people. I think it would be somewhat of an injustice to begin requiring people to get a survey, period.
Well, again,
it's a lot of money.
And I understand that. Yes, I agree. And it is a lot of money. I guess the question, and Jack, this speaks to your point about the county commissioners not wanting to take on the cost directly with them. They are. How long, Tyler, did you spend over those 9 years fixing parcel data?
That was my job.
And I would imagine you were being paid, right? So again, the fact that this is not as a cost, that's not true. The county and citizens are currently paying for this. It's just hidden. It's just being covered up by the fact that they're, not paying an outlay out front on an individual basis. It is a cost. It's just not right in front of your face like a bill from a surveyor would be if you sold your property with a survey.
And
So
Kevin,
that's the point that needs to come to fruition if you're trying to make the case for some of these changes to the workflow.
And Kevin, I agree with you, and the guy from Canada, because the more surveys we get recorded, the more pieces of the puzzle are put in place. And then you can build on those, and the survey next door isn't as expensive. The survey on the other side isn't as expensive. You get these blocks that become cheaper to survey. And of course, a piece that has been surveyed 10, 15 years from now, it'll be a lot cheaper to resurvey to make sure that those corners are still in place. But an initial survey of 10 acres out in the boonies where nothing has been surveyed since 1919 when they first described it, it is horribly expensive. And I get calls from people in Texas or from Florida or something, and they're saying, what? $3,000 to survey something? I just got 40 acres done for $800 here in Texas. Well, I guess so. You're out there on the big checkerboard.
I was going to say, and it's flat.
Yeah, I had that happen on a house when I lived in North Carolina in about 2000. Well, I sold it in, I guess it would have been 2009. And I wasn't familiar with all this that I'm familiar with now back at the time, but I remember selling that house. It was a requirement that I had the property surveyed in order to sell it. And it cost me $250 to have that lot surveyed. And you can't buy a survey for $250 around here. I don't think you could get a tenth of an acre survey for $250. You'd have more time, the surveyor, and just the research and making it.
And the thing is, though, with that, when we keep saying the costs in different states, it's because states have already enacted knowing that it is necessary to have stuff surveyed. So they have required surveys, and therefore it's $250 because I walk out there, find 4 pins, make a plat, and go. And that's where we keep talking about this cost, but other states are doing it, and other states easily, the people walk up and go, yeah, when I sell this, I got to have a survey. And it is something that they know they need to do. And like Jack said, the prices will go down whenever more stuff gets surveyed. But yeah, to your point though, the one about the recording all plats, I'm all for that. And then to help the county surveyor's role, he reviews those plats and makes sure that they meet minimum standards and writes a report that is filed with it that says that it meets minimum standards. I think that's a quick one. But you know, do we swing for the fences at first, or do we throw out a quick, you know, which one is going to help the whole outcome? And I love Kevin's aggression towards this and saying, you know, let's go for the big one, because the big one then fixes the recording of the plats. I mean, it fixes a lot. And again, we're not pushing that cost on the first transfer. We would be pushing the cost on to future, you know, after those transfers, and people can start going, okay, I need to save up to have this property. Or they may go, well, I want to have it done. Okay, well, it's $10,000. I mean, okay, you know, and nowadays I can get business loans through, or not business loans. I can provide services that I can become like a bank for somebody as well. I mean, there's plenty of programs now out there for people, or for surveyors and for any contractors, to provide and say, well, you can't pay for that, then you can finance it through me as well. I mean, there's avenues of that more than there was before. Just no one ever thinks about it. They think about easily going and spending $60,000 on a vehicle because it's something tangible. They can see it. They only see me come out there and sweat for 4 hours, but they don't see the 4 hours in the office. They don't see the talking to all the property owners on the phone. And there is some things that, you know, that you're never going to change on that. But I don't think that we should get hung up on what people have to pay to do something, because we all spend our money on a lot of frivolous.
I mean, I don't know. I don't want to get too hung up on this. I think that we do have to think about what people are going to have to pay, because I can tell you there's a lot of people in our county, and I guess it depends what county you're in. I mean, we're in, you know, rural West Virginia, some more rural than others, but I can tell you right now, there's people that will not be able to afford to transfer their property to their children or whatever, that if it was $1,000, that you got to get your acre surveyed here, acre and a half for $1,000 before you can transfer it, it wouldn't happen. And they'll find a way around it. They could not afford that $1,000. They don't drive a $60,000 vehicle. They drive a $500 95 Ford Ranger, which I have no problems with, but that's what they can afford. So that's what they're driving. So, you know, there's going to be those people. That's just my concern. You know, I don't know. That's my point, I guess. I mean, I'm not. I think it's a great idea if it was feasible from a cost standpoint.
I agree, and it speaks to what John was saying, which is the devil's in the details. And I guess what I would bring it back to again, to try and keep it within the structure of the roundtable discussion, which is how does the GIS profession help, you know, with some of these initiatives? Because I think they're worthwhile initiatives, but from the GIS perspective, right? I think the GIS community will see the benefits of these types of initiatives. So I think, Roy, I may have mentioned it at the time, but, you know, I think you should send the AGP a draft of your responsibilities, the county surveyor responsibilities, and the thing that you want to kind of promote to either the county commissions or the legislatures or to the, you know, assessors, whoever you're trying to garner support. Bring that before us, and we'll, you know, if it meets the criteria, sign off on it. Or at least from my perspective, that would be the role that the AGP could say, look, as an industry, as GIS professionals, we want to support this initiative. That would be a tangible, you know, action item from today that, you know, we would get out of it. I think we could keep going into the nitty-gritty details, and I personally would love to get into these. So please keep me in on these, because I have other ideas, you know. And again, Tyler, I'm sympathetic to, you know, I don't want to charge the taxpayers more than they need to be charged. I'm totally on game with that. But if there's surveys that, like you said, establish either a corner or a boundary, then maybe it's just that needs to be submitted, or, you know, anything that's taxpayer funded at all in any way, shape, or form and has a survey done, that survey has to be recorded. Like, there are easy kind of low hanging fruit that I think we could go after in terms of getting the ball rolling towards a better patchwork quilt of parcel data. And this is just like one subject. I know I'm not screen sharing anymore. This was only like one subject area slide, was cadastral cooperation, that the GIS and surveying overlap. So I kind of wanted to put a button on this, the cadastral side of things, saying that would be, I think, an area that we could cooperate. I think the training, you know, I think we've talked about some of that. What are, I know there's 30 odd some people here also, and a few of you have been commenting, which is great, but is there any other issues or topics that we can broach, at least, again, just kind of to whiteboard? We don't have to get into all of these, but we can follow up with them. So is there any other issues or topics that you guys want to discuss or bring up to our attention, or things that we should be talking about in greater detail? Nathaniel Davis asked if don't site plans require land surveys. I think I don't know the answer to that. Maybe
How
Roy could answer.
about,
John.
how about mapping initiatives? Don't counties and other organizations go do like statewide or countywide mapping programs, aerial photography, that sort of thing? Maybe some type of ground control or something like that. I think county surveyor or surveyors in general might be able to, you know, we might be able to overlap a little there and help with that.
Yes, John, that's a great point. I definitely had a slide somewhere on that as well. Yeah, on technology is kind of, I titled it technology for under collaboration, which is, you know, drone mapping and data collection, GPS mapping and data collection, and then photogrammetry. And typically when you would think of that, at least from my perspective as a geographer, you would think of photogrammetry as like the actual art and science of like aerial photo flown from an airplane and like stereo imagery and all that fun stuff, which is, you know, of course, obsolete. I guess now I'm thinking about, in terms of photogrammetry, could even be, you know, you're either flying drones to build 3D models. I know Marvin with the city of Morgantown had discussed doing 3D models of all of the buildings for the city. You know, I think there could definitely be some overlap in terms of, again, understanding ground control, that type of stuff, that could be expertise from your, you know, your industry, from the surveying industry, that speaks into some of these initiatives. John, do you have any other good examples of mapping initiative? I mean, like addressing, that seems pretty straightforward. I don't know how much you guys are involved in the addressing.
One thing that comes to mind is I can recall here in Tales, you know, back when we've had some mining disasters and some surveyors have been called in to try and help with reaching the victims and getting people out and that sort of thing. So some kind of a common control system or something that you know, surveyors, county officials, others could all share might be something that might be useful for something like that, you know, search and rescue, or along with other initiatives.
Yeah, like I said, I think that's a good point. I'm going to add this back.
Kevin, if I could bring up another topic here. When we're sitting there talking about legislation, I would just ask that any of your members, because like I say, I'm on the legislative committee for our society, all this legislation, yes, needs to be written up. It needs to be specifically written for certain areas of the code, but it also is going to need a spokesman. We have to have a delegate or a senator to present this on the floor. You have to know your legislators. And it's even better if they know you. So seriously.
No, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right.
They have to know you. They have to know your position. They have to know your business. They have to know your importance to this legislation. And that's going to emphasize to them that, hey, I better take a look at this, because everybody sends hundreds of emails. When the session starts, these guys are just swamped. But you've got to get your legislation written before the session starts, and you've got to talk to these people before the session starts, so that on day 2, he's got your bill and he submits it. You've got to be ready. You've got to know what you want, but you've got to have that person that that will listen to you and agree with you and actually put it on the floor. So I ask, for all your people there, that if you know some of these delegates, if you know some of these senators, please let Kevin know, please let me know. If you can talk to them and actually get them to support legislation, because we can have the greatest ideas in the world, but if they don't hit that floor, we're here next year talking about the same thing, or 21 years from now, talking about the same thing. So
well, and to be honest, I'm also wondering if that doesn't speak back to what we discussed in terms of kind of our outreach to the Assessors Association and county clerks. It seems like they may or may not be more plugged in with some of the delegates to begin with, being that their positions are inherently political. Yeah, that's a good point. I'll just say that was one of my envious things for you guys. You guys seem like you have at least a good approach. We don't even have a legislative committee. So, that's one of the things that I'd like to learn from you guys, and how to do that. And, how do we advocate for, making sure that at least counties have the ability to hire a GIS person, and that person can help maintain their address and their emergency 911 addressing, or some of the tax parcel mapping. I understand that not every county is going to have every position. Like I've been here longer than 20 years and I understand that. But I think there's enough time now that, knowing the tasks at hand and the responsibilities of the counties, there is enough work for a GIS professional. Just like Roy's saying, like, we know that there's enough work to be had for the county surveyor, which is why I think that there's probably some room there to maybe work together to collaborate. If they're willing to bite on, maybe a combined position of some kind that would help assist in some of these tasks that we've talked about. Yes, you're right. We've talked about.
I agree. I think that office should if it's not one person with those skills, I think that office, like Roy was saying earlier, should definitely have both of those skills in that position. It's required. So he may have a deputy or whatever, but it's
intern again. Okay, I want to bring it back to, kind of the members. I see 30 people lurking in the shadows here. Any of you guys, I know I've been talking a lot. Any other issues that you guys want to, bring up? Now's a good chance to do so. And criticisms, complaints, accolades. Where do we want to go from here? Tori, are you sure you have a county surveyor?
Not anymore, I don't think, but we have. But not one of them come in here and said, "Hey, I'm the county surveyor." Oh, cool. Nice to meet you. Never.
Yeah.
And yes, Tori, that's something that I've been advocating to all the county surveyors. I talked to a lot of them and tried to get them to run this year. And I said, the first thing you do is go to the courthouse, introduce yourself to the mapper, introduce yourself to the county clerk, to the assessor, to the commissioners, introduce yourself to anybody that'll talk to you.
Yeah.
Know that, yes, we have a county surveyor. Yes, when it comes to mapping, when it comes to locating some things, I can probably help you. you'll just ask. I'll do anything I can to help you. I've been urging all of our county surveyors, make yourself valuable.
I mean, that's a good point. And like I said, I would like to add maybe this discussion on an annual basis. Again, I'm kind of on my way out the door now, but I think just making that connection with you guys, I think would help long ways to trying to get some of these things accomplished. Okay, so I mean, barring, I haven't heard many other comments. Nobody else has really jumped up yet, but like I said, how do we kind of wrap today's session with tangible to-do list items that we can assist on? Training, I think, is definitely one of them. We are constantly offering probably 2 times a year our GIS Foundations classes. Those are kind of the basic, no experience in GIS necessary, 3 days worth of or 2 days worth of training to, hey, this is what GIS is. This is a crash course in the software just to kind of expose you to the concepts. And then, so we have some of those things that, we could certainly throw your way, offer to your members. We can take a look at, like I said, if you guys have resources on your side in terms of intro to surveying and land boundary, however you guys want to do it, where are ways that we can, go forward. So we can certainly look at some of that. In terms of model legislation, I mean, do you guys want to get together, kind of this core group? Do you guys want to get together in the future and come up with a strategy to reach out to the assessors, to reach out to the municipal league, to the clerks association, come up with maybe a letter or hand delivered, like Jack's saying, make those connections. How do we, where are we going with that as in terms of maybe like Roy, to either support the county surveyor or to support some of these legislative agendas?
Kevin, is there anything like legislative that you guys have like pushed in prior, years for? I know you mentioned have a committee within your organization, but have you guys actively sought any, pushing for stuff like that?
I'm loath to speak on behalf of the entirety of the AGP. I mean, we do exist as a function of legislation. The association, our association, was created under with the GIS steering committee and GIS coordinator's office, along with the tech center, essentially. Well, let me rephrase that. The association was a follow-up to the GIS steering committee. I know that's, anyways. I think the short answer is no. There have been initiatives that, for example, we've tangentially been involved with. So, for example, the tax parcels. You may have, I'm going to forget the name of the lawsuit about 5 years ago, 10 years, not 10 years.
Talking about Seneca.
Yeah. So the Seneca lawsuit was really kind of a revolutionary point in time to get involved, where we were able to try and work with some of the legislators to change some of the digital tax submission and then publicly accessible data at that point. That's only half of it. I know the minerals is kind of the elephant in the room. The mineral parcels were part of that lawsuit and supposedly are in the public domain, but the state tax office has never released them publicly. So that's another kind of area that I think is at some point going to rear its head. I don't know what the active areas would be other than my kind of what I'm personally involved with, which is kind of like addressing and Next Gen 911, where I know that the state has been working towards trying to establish better protocols for the state's use of county 911 data. So that's road center lines and address points. So I don't know what the crossover there would be for you guys. I don't know if we actively have any kind of GIS in legislative activities. I know we've supported some changes of the Department of Education to integrate GIS better in the classroom, but I don't know if those were that's not really legislative initiatives, I don't think.
I was just,
I don't know that you've gone after any specific issues like you're saying, Kevin, but you guys have been involved in GIS Day almost every year for quite a number of years. And that's a legislative effort to meet and greet and get yourself known by the people that make the policy.
Yes, John, and absolutely. And we definitely have recognized for a long time the importance of getting support from leadership for GIS initiatives. And I guess that's why I was trying to parse I don't know if we've necessarily asked for legislative changes, but we've definitely been looking to garner support for GIS positions. And that sometimes is at the state level. I know the state tax office definitely needs to hire additional people. They've just had a lot of turnover and they are missing positions. I think that would be true in most of the offices. Luckily, the Geologic and Economic Survey has just hired a bunch of new positions. So I mean, making the case that it's important what we do, what our work is important. Showing them maps, the Department of Highways is just a fantastic success at initiating a GIS program within that agency. We want, the legislators to know that, we're making things happen for them. It's not like always like, the sexy maps that people get to see, but it's the data that goes into them. That's kind of the constant battle that we've been up against.
You said something.
That's a big point of it in educating those policymakers about who you are and what it means to them. Because a lot of them just don't know. And the surveyors have been a little bit weak in that area.
You said something there about getting getting people in, the assessor, the county levels or hiring people into those positions. What did you say there a second ago?
Yeah, I mean, addressing offices, county assessor offices, planning offices, sometimes the state agencies themselves. We've been pushing for support for GIS mappers in those positions. It
was already an elected official in the counties that do not have a current position, that if you're pushing for that initiative already, then there is a vacant county elected position in every county right now by the title of Office of County Surveyors that has no official duties. That would be something right there for the county surveyors to have an actual duty that is seen by another group as importance.
Sure.
And I guess I'll take it back away from the whole, let's get plats recorded, let's do all that stuff. That's something that the Society of Professional Surveyors can start pushing for. But getting it back to, I think, our relationship here and what I think you just hit right there. You said there's been an initiative to try to get people hired into these positions, into these counties. Well, here we are. So, I mean, if that's an initiative, and then Jack said we need to find somebody to stand up and push for it. I think we still have a licensed land surveyor by the name of Dave Sightbolt in this right there for us. So yes, back on John's thing of this is tough. I don't think it's really that tough. I think we found an avenue here potentially as we've went through an hour and 40 minutes. I think there's a light for at least the county surveyor side and to help you all out as well to push for that initiative. I don't think we would need the approval from, maybe the assessors, obviously, but we wouldn't have to care anything about commissioners. I mean, well, they would probably have to be the ones that would pay for it, obviously. But if you're pushing for it and they want to, do it, then I just think, I'm just sitting here. I just think that would be something for us to easily get behind. I think as the president of the County Surveyors Association, that we have, I think I could talk to our guys and that would be an initiative for us to work forward to.
Do you guys have like we have the GIS day at the legislature? I'm assuming, do you guys have a similar day that you guys spend at the legislature?
As the official association of county surveyors?
Yeah, or either this, no.
I believe with society we do. Do we not?
I mean, I wouldn't mind.
We have a standing one. We have done that before a time or two, but it's been a long time.
Okay. Well, I was just gonna suggest that if you guys do another one this coming year, maybe if you don't mind dropping us a line, we wouldn't mind having a table there as well, if that's all right. I mean, but again, the same idea is, we work together on some of these issues. I think it would be beneficial. So yeah.
Well, I think maybe vice versa too. I mean, I think it would probably be, I don't know if they have in the past had a surveyor society table at the GIS day. I don't think that would be a bad idea either. I mean, again, we've got a lot of overlaps. I don't think it will be out of the realm of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I definitely agree. Yep. And yeah, we are, and that's what I was saying earlier. We are planning on doing that again. So, I'll mention it, to the board, and as they get that scheduled, we can certainly, extend an invite.
Hey, Kevin, this is Adam.
Hey, Adam.
Can I say a few things?
Absolutely.
I know you're probably trying to wind down. I've been sitting here absorbing a lot of this, and you're talking about action items, leaving this roundtable. So I've heard several different issues, topics, and each of them deserves more than just 90 minutes to talk about just that specific item, whether it's an issue or whatever it might be. I'm just wondering with the new board that will be in effect in July, if maybe going back to them and saying, and I don't know about on the Surveyor Society or Society of Professional Surveyors, I don't know how they do it on their end, but we could come up with like an ad hoc committee group that could get us, from our bylaws to have some people in the of our members set on that ad hoc committee and work with a group from the surveyors side and tackle all of these items that were discussed today, one at a time. Give each one of those items the attention that it deserves, instead of having to come back a year from now and chat about the same thing, or 21 years from now and having the same discussion. Maybe, and we're talking about trying to come together and bring our forces together. And I think it's a great suggestion where the surveyors are at GIS Day and the Association of Geospatial Professionals at the Surveyors Day at the Capitol. We come at them, joint forces, and in that group, both on both associations, having an attack plan. You were talking about earlier about the low hanging fruit, and then going after the big guns, or going maybe having this group coming up with all of these items and having it phased out. It is a big picture, but we do need to look at it. That seeing it all at once can be very overwhelming. But if we take a little bit and say, okay, this is what we need to do here, this is what we need to do there, And this is part of that group where they come together and they find out what all of these things are, and having, you know, a plan in place to where when we go talk to the legislation, when we go talk to the county officials, whether it's the commission or the assessor's office, or the clerk's office, I think that's probably where, you know, from this roundtable discussion, where we need to start is with that group from our association, and that group from the professional surveyors, and let them take it.
Yeah, Adam, I think that's a great point. Absolutely. I think in terms of trying to get together somewhat more regularly would be a good start. And definitely having a kind of an ad hoc committee, I think would be possible. You know, and you know, so John, you know, of course, John's been, you know, representative of the state surveyors, you know, on our board. We have that in our bylaws. John, I can't remember if we actually have that on your side as well. Is it Dave or?
Yeah, you guys are, I think we have a special category. I think you guys made to membership, where each one of our societies is like an affiliated member.
Yeah.
That's what it's called on our side. I think you guys have a different term for it, but it's basically the same thing. And we have a liaison, which has been me, to you guys, your organization, and you guys, if you so choose, are welcome to have a liaison with ours. We have had one in the past, and I think a couple people, I can't remember who now, have attended our board meetings from time to time, representing your organization. I think back when Rob, what was his name from Parkersburg? Rob. Pardon?
Rob Portman?
No. He was president there at one time. I think he was there. I think someone else came to, and I think. Pardon?
Rob Schaefer. Yes.
Yeah, Rob Schaefer. Yeah, Rob Schaefer. And I think he was president at one time and came, and I think we've had Kurt or someone at a convention or two when we had it up in Morgantown. I think we've had some contact, or some participation, but not a whole lot on your side.
Well, that again, that definitely falls on us to make sure that we're staying active and engaged. So I agree that's something that we can improve. So, you know, Adam, and I agree. So taking kind of a, you know, action item, I'm trying to put together some bullets here. You know, can we set up maybe you want to pick a day in the future that we can, or an email list that we can at least just start discussing some of these issues? Like I said, Roy, I think if you are to send, you know, the board, you know, a template or some form of, you know, description of the county surveyor responsibilities that you are envisioning, you know, we can discuss it on our end and say, yeah, we want to get behind this. Or if you don't mind, we could certainly probably send back language that we would either, you know, would want to have or see something, you know, if there's, you know, if we could sneak in some GIS responsibilities of some form or another, you know, again,
Right.
you know, how can we make this mutually beneficial? You know, how do we make sure that we're getting the best, you know, for the counties as well? So I think that's kind of an action item as well.
You know, you mentioned that, Kevin. I think we've done that a couple of times before with the Surveyors Society. And I think the times that we've done that, we've been successful in that legislation.
Yeah, I know we've definitely provided you guys with some feedback before when you guys have given us I think it was legislation for court. I can't remember what it was. It was a while ago.
Yeah, I think there was a couple of times. I think you guys were involved in the thing where we did the the coordinate system. And I think you guys were involved in, I think we did something with the rules, I think, with the tax mapping, but we might have been participating with you guys at that point. But there's been about another one or two I can't call to mind right now.
Right. So then maybe you want to try and maybe get together, or say that we want to be maybe 30 days out or thereabouts from maybe a follow-up. Does that sound reasonable? Or do you want a little bit more time than that? Or, I mean,
I think that's fine. The sooner we get started, the better, because it's not going to be long before the legislative season is here. It's not going to be long. Now, I understand we're going to be talking about other things, and something I was going to suggest, Kevin, is don't forget that that we do have JewelNet's resources here. If you want to set up a listserv that would have 3 or 4 people from each of our organizations and call it joint liaison or just whatever. But that way we could all communicate at once and not have to worry about email problems.
That's a good suggestion, Jack. And Amarisha chimed in and said, yeah, that'd be great with them. They'd be able to set one up. So, so yeah, I think that works. So maybe the first or second week of August. I mean, we're basically at the first week of July right now. When does the legislative session start? Do we know roughly? It's got to be close to August,
It'll
right?
probably be around January 10th, I think, something like that, 10th, 11th. It'll be like the day of the governor's State of the State address.
Okay.
Yeah,
It'll be early January.
Yeah, but
Last
John,
year it was in like the 20th or something, but that was because it was an election year.
right, and John, aren't there some preliminary meetings that they have even before then? Some of the committees and that sort of thing?
The committees will be having interim meetings.
I'm going to look and target. How about I'm just going to randomly pick a day, August 11th. It's a Wednesday. And if that doesn't work, we can certainly make it, flexible. I'm just kind of throwing it out there just to get something down so that we have a target. That's all.
Weekends are usually better for me, but evening times, obviously, now, like right now, I've had a lot I'm needing to do, but I wanted to hang on with y'all and keep chiming in the best I can. So, but yeah, I got to be doing some other stuff as well.
Okay. That's fine. Like I said, we could follow up over email. Amarisha, I think that's a good way to go. If we set up maybe a listserv, people who are wanting to participate in these discussions, and then go from there. And that'll give us kind of some action items. Like I said, I have a few on my end, but maybe we can hash out some more firm action items, what we want to accomplish.
I would probably, if we're going to do a 2, would you want some initiative from, the initiatives of what the County Surveyors Association, would like to pursue in that 1 month period here? Is that what we're kind of thinking? Or are we talking about this one being, like Adam mentioned, where we're bringing all of our stuff to the table and discussing multiple things and then going back and creating? Because just to try to find the time to get all the county surveyors sort of together and on board with, some of these initiatives. Obviously, I'm going to have to garner the support of the county surveyors. I can't just put a list together and hope that everyone wants to do it. So that'd just be the thing.
No, I get it. And no, I don't know if we need to have finished products, but I guess I'm just thinking the more tangible items that we have to work on, and whether that's a specific description for the county surveyor position, if it's training dates and training classes, or if it's like model legislation, the more of the tangible things that we can put down and start meeting about, I think the more likely they are to get done. I guess that's where
Yes.
I'm at.
No, and I think I can formulate up enough, stuff, especially with the one from 21 years ago. It sounds like it was written yesterday. I mean, that was floated around within our, and Jack may know a little bit about that a little bit more. I'm not sure. I may have gotten it from Leon. Leon may have sent it to me. Jack, do you know, Leon Mallow? Jack, do you know that initiative from Leon Spencer that I had mentioned before? I don't know if you gave that to me or Leon Mallow or not.
Yes, I sent that to you because Lee Spencer, he passed away 10, 12 years ago now, but I had access to that, and I'd been looking at it for quite a while, and I thought it was very important. I thought there was some good stuff there. So I think pass it on to you.
Yeah, I think it sounded even in the future, even though it was 20 years ago. I mean, everything he talked about, mosaics, aerials, I mean, just all the stuff we're talking about now. I think it's a great framework already for us that we wouldn't have to spend too much time, mustering up, getting everybody's ideas.
I think that'd be a great model. I think it'd be a great testament to him too, because he worked long and hard at this sort of thing for years and years.
Just to reading through some of the comments, it looks like Frank had suggested some dates in order for legislation to be put forward. It doesn't look like it would be realistic, or at least from my perspective, that anything would be done legislatively, but hey, that's just that gives us a deadline for next year. If we start hammering out things that we would want to see in terms of digital surveys, filed, deed recordation, whatever that might be, that gives us a year to kind of write things down, to try and garner support from the assessors' offices and from the GIS community. Then, so I think in terms of legislative.
Hey, Kevin, one thing you got to keep in mind, I keep going back to, is the details. What Frank's talking about is rules, okay? Rules and code changes legislation are two separate things.
Okay.
So you got to be sure, are you trying to change the code, or are you trying to change some rules in the code that deals with the assessor or the clerk or someone? So again, the details and the specifics. You may very well introduce legislation right on the floor next session without this comment period he's talking about. What he's talking about is in, I think that's in chapter 29 in the rulemaking procedures.
Yeah, and Kevin, I think this would be a great time for any of your people in the GIS community. If they have something that they would like to see in the code, if they have some ideas also, they should bring them forth, because John's got a lot of experience at writing things up and knowing where to put it and who to talk to. And Roy brought up the idea of combining some of these things. So yes, bring everything you got to the table on August 11th or whatever, and we'll sort it out from there. We'll just have a feast. We'll have
all right. That sounds good. I'll see what I can come up with by then.
And the good thing, I don't know if this is like divine intervention here, but I will be taking leadership of as president of the Society of Professional Surveyors come next year, and it sounds like I have a pretty good initiative already starting out for my legacy as president to push forward through. So I think it's, I don't know, we talk about it, not working out any other years, but I think we're in the right step. I think we're in the right frame of mind, and we'll see where it goes.
Okay. Sounds good. Let's be in communication. I think get an email, Amarisha, if you're still listening and haven't fallen asleep.
I'm here.
If we want to maybe gather the emails from the folks that are on right now, and then anyone, of course, who would like to be added, at least that'll get the ball rolling. We'll set up a date to meet in the future in terms of, you know, even virtual. I mean, obviously would still be pretty easy, I think, for most people. I don't mind nights and weekends. That's fine with me. So, you know, if that works for everyone's schedule, that would be fine. And then, yeah, we could start kind of getting through some of the details of what we want to accomplish and where we want to go through next, or where we want to go through next. Yeah. Fantastic. Final thoughts, anyone? It's been kind of a roving conversation, but that's kind of what I wanted to have happen. Truthfully, I thought it would be pretty good by just being able to open. I didn't expect to speak as much, so I'm
Why they call it a roundtable.
I'm glad everyone didn't already throw me out at the very beginning when my wife was standing. I'm gonna have to go home and probably have to deal with her because I left her standing out in the rain while I was trying to start the speech out. So, but hopefully everyone, I made some bit of sense at the beginning there.
Yeah, I think we got it.
We'll see you in August if you survive.
Yeah.
And Kevin, thanks to you and your organization for having us. I enjoyed the roundtable. I think it will open a lot of eyes for everyone. A lot of different perspectives. You always learn something when you get a lot of different groups together. So thank you for having us.
You're very welcome. And yeah, likewise. I'm glad that we had an opportunity to do this, and I think I really want to see this as the beginning of kind of a more active group in terms of working together. So sounds good. All right. Well, without any parting shots, I hope you guys have a good weekend. And if you guys have any feedback otherwise for the conference, and next time one of you guys is going to have to present at our conference, we you know, we'll have to get you involved too. So, but yeah, I think look forward to an email, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for the conference. Thank you, JewelNet, for helping, and wish you guys the best. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, WVAGP.
Okay, guys, we'll see you.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.